Hello everyone, this is AppleKnows channel speaking to you right now. Imagine an apple talking, but not just any apple, the one that knows the most unbelievable things about the United States, things that sound like myths but are absolutely real. Today, I'm going to peel back the skin of ordinary history and serve you slices of facts so wild that your mind will keep replaying them long after you've heard them. Let's start with something strange. In the United States, there is an actual town with the shortest possible name. It's simply called D in Oregon. Just one single letter is enough to put it on the map. And while that seems almost like a joke, here's something even harder to believe: there is a law in Arizona that makes it illegal for donkeys to sleep in bathtubs. Sounds insane, right? But it was created after a rancher's donkey got swept away in a flood while sitting in one. That's America for you, laws shaped by the most unexpected stories. Now let me tell you about size, because America loves to do everything big. There is a house in North Carolina known as the Biltmore Estate, and it's the largest privately owned home in the entire country. We're talking 250 rooms, a banquet hall with a ceiling so high you'd lose your voice shouting at the top, and a library with over 10,000 books. And yet, people still live there today. While you try to imagine that, think about this: in Alaska, there are more caribou than people. That's right, nature wins over humans there. And in fact, Alaska is so massive that if it were cut in half, each piece would still be larger than Texas. But America is not just about size. It's about strange contrasts. For instance, the US has more ghost towns than living ones. Old mining towns, once full of life, now stand empty and silent, scattered across deserts and mountains. Some of them are preserved as tourist attractions, while others are just left to rot. And while we're on silence, here's a fact that will give you goosebumps: in Minnesota, there's an anechoic chamber at Warfield Laboratories, the quietest place on Earth. Step inside, and you'll hear your own heartbeat, your blood rushing, even your bones moving. No one has managed to stay inside for more than an hour without starting to lose their mind. Now, let's get a little darker. In the United States, there's an actual island called Alcatraz, once the most famous prison in the world. It was said to be inescapable because of freezing waters and strong currents. But in 1962, 3 prisoners disappeared after digging their way out. Their bodies were never found. The FBI eventually closed the case, but to this day, some believe they survived and started new lives. That's not a Hollywood movie, that's real history. And speaking of survival, America is home to the world's largest population of grizzly bears and mountain lions, but here's the twist: more people are killed each year by vending machines falling over than by these predators. Think about that the next time you kick a stubborn snack machine. Here's one that always shocks people: the US government actually owns more than 60% of all the land in Nevada. Imagine living in a state where more than half of the territory is under government control. And some of that land includes the mysterious Area 51, a place so secretive that for decades the government didn't even admit it existed. People speculate about aliens, experimental aircraft, and technologies we can't even begin to understand. Whatever the truth is, the fact that it's hidden so carefully makes it even more unbelievable. And then, there's money. Did you know that the United States once printed a $100,000 bill? It was never meant for the public, only for transactions between Federal Reserve banks. But it existed, with Woodrow Wilson's face on it. Imagine holding a single piece of paper worth a fortune. I could keep going, because every time you think you know America, it throws you something so bizarre, so unexpected, that you can't look away. And I, Apple, your host at AppleKnows, promise to keep peeling away layers you didn't know existed. I'm about to give you more slices of America you won't believe are real. Picture this: there is a place in Kansas called Lebanon that is officially the geographic center of the contiguous United States. You might expect a grand monument, but what stands there is a tiny chapel that can only fit about 4 people. In a country obsessed with size, the literal heart of the land is marked by something so small it feels almost like a prank. But if you think that's odd, wait for this: the Library of Congress in Washington, D.C., is the largest library in the world, and it adds about 10,000 items every single day. Books, photos, recordings, everything. In fact, it's so massive that if you tried to read one item every single day of your life, you would never even scratch the surface. And while we're talking about size again, here's something that blows my mind: the state of Montana has more cows than people. The population of humans doesn't even compare to the number of cattle roaming freely. Imagine being outnumbered by livestock in your own home state. Now let's swing into the unexpected. In New York, there is a skyscraper with no windows. It's called 33 Thomas Street, and it's a 29-story building designed to withstand nuclear blasts. People who live around it call it eerie, silent, and even sinister, because nobody really knows what happens inside. Officially, it's a telecommunications hub. Unofficially, well, the mystery makes it one of the strangest landmarks in the country. But here's one that sounds like fiction. In California, there's a tree so big you could drive a car through its trunk. The giant sequoias are among the oldest living organisms on Earth, some of them over 3,000 years old. They've stood there since before the Roman Empire even existed. You can't argue with that kind of timeline. America has trees older than entire civilizations. Now let's talk about weather. The town of Yuma, Arizona, is the sunniest place on Earth. It has sunshine for over 90% of the year. On the flip side, Mount Washington in New Hampshire once held the record for the fastest wind speed ever recorded by humans on the surface of the Earth, at 231 miles per hour. That's strong enough to strip paint off a building. But nothing is stranger than what lies underground. In Kentucky, the Mammoth Cave system is the longest cave in the world, stretching over 400 miles explored and still going. Entire cities could fit inside, yet most of it remains hidden in darkness. The underground world of America is larger than many countries. And then, the food facts. Americans eat about 3 billion pizzas every single year. To put it another way, that's 350 slices of pizza consumed every second. And yet, in the same country, there's a law in Louisiana that says you cannot steal someone's alligator. That means it happened often enough that lawmakers had to make it illegal. The deeper you look, the more America feels like a giant paradox, full of brilliance, absurdity, and mystery wrapped together. And here I am, your Apple, just cutting deeper into the core to reveal more. First, let's talk about death, or more specifically, death penalties. Did you know that in New Hampshire, it was once legal to execute people by hanging all the way until 1996? That's not ancient history, that's barely yesterday. And in Utah, death by firing squad was an option until 2010. The idea that modern America still had these practices shocks most people outside the country. Now here's something that sounds like a movie plot. There is a town in Pennsylvania called Centralia that has been burning for decades. Underneath it, a coal mine fire started in 1962 and has never stopped. The fire could keep going for another 250 years. The entire town was abandoned, houses demolished, and today only a few people live there surrounded by smoke seeping out of the ground. The place is so eerie it inspired the video game Silent Hill. And yet, it's real. But here's another slice of strangeness. In California's Death Valley, there are stones that move on their own across the desert floor. They leave trails behind them as if dragged by invisible hands. Scientists later discovered it's caused by a rare combination of ice, water, and wind, but still, watching giant rocks slowly crawl is unsettling. Now, imagine this: in the US, there are more empty houses than there are homeless people. That's not a riddle, it's reality. Millions of homes sit unoccupied, yet tens of thousands of people live on the streets. That contrast is one of the most unbelievable truths about America. And speaking of contrasts, America has towns with the strangest names. There's Truth or Consequences in New Mexico, Accident in Maryland, and even Hell in Michigan. Imagine living in hell and telling people that's your hometown. But let me take you higher now, literally. Did you know that Mount Denali in Alaska rises taller from base to peak than Mount Everest? Everest is higher above sea level, but Denali's vertical rise is greater. It's one of those hidden facts that flips what you thought you knew about the world's mountains. And here's a disturbing one: every single day in the US, over 5 million sandwiches are eaten. That might sound harmless, but here's the twist: statistically, Americans eat more than 300 million sandwiches a year, which is almost one per person every single day. And if you lined up all those sandwiches, they would circle the Earth about 12 times. Now back to laws, because the US has some of the strangest. In Alabama, it's illegal to carry an ice cream cone in your back pocket. In Oklahoma, it's against the law to make faces at dogs. And in Kentucky, you must shower at least once a year by law, which makes you wonder what was happening before they wrote that down. America is also full of natural extremes. The deepest lake in the country, Crater Lake in Oregon, is so clear you can see 120 feet down. And it was formed inside the remains of a collapsed volcano. That's nature leaving behind a crater and turning it into one of the most breathtaking places on Earth. And finally, for this slice, the Pentagon, the headquarters of the U.S. Department of Defense, is so huge that it has twice as many bathrooms as necessary. Why? Because when it was built in the 1940s, segregation laws required separate restrooms for black and white workers. The bathrooms remain, even though the law has long been abolished. A reminder hidden in the walls of power. And if that doesn't make you question how many more strange, haunting, or mind-bending truths are out there, trust me, the core of this apple is nowhere near finished. I'm about to hand you facts that will stick in your mind like seeds you can't spit out. Let's start with roads. The United States has the longest road network in the world, stretching over 4 million miles. That's enough to wrap around Earth more than 160 times. But here's the twist, there's also a highway in Florida called the Overseas Highway that takes you across 42 bridges, some more than 7 miles long, driving over the open ocean. It feels less like a road and more like a surreal dream. Now imagine this, in Washington state, there's a volcano called Mount Rainier, and scientists believe if it erupts, it could unleash a mudflow so massive it would bury entire towns in minutes. Yet millions of people live nearby, carrying on their daily lives under the shadow of potential disaster. And speaking of living under shadows, America is home to more than 35,000 McDonald's restaurants. There are actually more fast food locations than hospitals. Think about that for a moment, it's easier to get a burger at 3 a.m. than it is to find medical help. But let's go underground again, because what lies below is even stranger. In Kansas, there is an abandoned missile silo that has been converted into luxury apartments for millionaires who want to survive the end of the world. We're talking swimming pools, gyms, private cinemas, all built inside what was once a nuclear weapon facility. Real-life apocalypse condos. Now, here's something most people never think about, the US government has a massive stockpile of cheese. Yes, actual cheese. Billions of pounds of it, stored in caves in Missouri. It started decades ago as a way to support dairy farmers, and now it's a hidden reserve that could keep the country fed with dairy products for years. And then there's a fact that bends the mind. The Statue of Liberty wasn't always green. When it was first built, it was a shiny copper color, like a new penny. Over time, the copper oxidized, turning it into the green icon we know today. It took only about 20 years for Lady Liberty to completely change her color. But here's something far darker. In the United States, there are more tigers kept in private captivity than exist in the wild across the entire planet. Backyard cages, roadside zoos, even private collections, it's legal in many states to own a tiger. That fact alone feels more like fiction than reality. And speaking of animals, America once had camels roaming its deserts. In the 1800s, the U.S. Army imported camels to use for transport in the Southwest. The plan failed, and many camels were released into the wild. People reported seeing them for decades afterward, wandering the desert like ghosts of an experiment gone wrong. Let's go back to the land now. The United States is so geographically extreme that it contains both the hottest place on Earth, Death Valley, where temperatures once reached 134 degrees Fahrenheit, and the coldest place ever recorded outside of Antarctica, at Alaska's Prospect Creek, which hit -80 degrees Fahrenheit. One country, two extremes that don't seem possible together. And here's one final slice for now. In Boston, there's a baseball stadium, Fenway Park, that has been standing for over a century. The seats are so old that they're narrower than modern chairs, because people back then were physically smaller. It's a living time capsule where even the furniture reminds you how much humanity has changed in a short time. Every layer I peel back reveals something stranger, something more unbelievable, yet all of it is true. Think about presidents for a moment. Everyone knows George Washington was the first, But here's what most don't realize: he never actually lived in the White House. It wasn't finished yet. The very first president to step inside as a resident was John Adams. And speaking of the White House, did you know it has its own movie theater, bowling alley, swimming pool, and even a dentist's office? It's less a house and more like a private city hidden behind gates. Now let's talk about money again. The US spends more money printing paper currency each year than it does on the paper used to make actual textbooks for students. And here's an even crazier financial fact: in 1932, the US government once mailed a live kangaroo to a zoo in Washington, D.C., as part of a diplomatic gift exchange. You can't make this up: diplomacy wrapped in fur. And here's a haunting one. In the state of Washington lies an abandoned nuclear reactor called the B reactor. It's the world's first large-scale plutonium production reactor, used during the Manhattan Project. It helped create the bombs dropped in World War II. Today, it just sits there, silent, massive, and open for tours. Visitors walk through the hallways where history's deadliest weapon was born. Speaking of the strange past, let me tell you about Prohibition. During the 1920s, alcohol was banned, but people found creative and dangerous ways around it. One infamous result was bathtub gin, alcohol brewed in homes that sometimes contained poisonous chemicals. Thousands of people actually died from drinking poison liquor supplied by bootleggers. Imagine a government ban leading to more deaths than the problem it tried to fix. Now for geography: in the US, there's a place where 4 states meet at a single point: Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah. It's called the Four Corners Monument. You can literally stand in 4 states at once, with each limb in a different one. Nowhere else in the country can you do that. But let's tilt toward the bizarre. In New Jersey, it is illegal to pump your own gas. That's right, attendants have to do it for you by law. The idea is to prevent accidents, but it's one of those laws that makes outsiders shake their heads in disbelief. And here's something darker hidden in plain sight. Underneath Walt Disney World in Florida lies a network of secret underground tunnels. They're used by staff to move around without being seen by visitors. People go to Disney to escape reality, but reality is still right there under their feet, in concrete passageways that most guests never even know exist. Now let's go into space, because America was the first and only country to land humans on the moon. But what most don't know is that the astronauts left not only a US flag, but also dozens of strange items: golf balls, a family photo, even bags of human waste. That's right, the moon is littered with remnants of human life in ways that sound more like a joke than history. And for a chilling fact, in the 1950s, the US government carried out secret experiments known as Project Sunshine, collecting human remains, including bones from deceased children, without families' knowledge, to study radiation exposure. It sounds like a horror movie plot, but it's documented reality. Every fact I slice open shows you America is not just land, power, or culture: it's mystery, contradictions, and secrets that refuse to stay buried. Imagine this: there is a town in Alaska where almost everyone lives in the same building. The place is called Whittier. Nearly the entire population, about 200 people, share a 14-story former army barracks. Inside you'll find apartments, a school, a post office, even a small grocery store. One building, one town. It's like a vertical village at the edge of the world. Now let's talk about nature. In Wyoming, Yellowstone National Park holds more than half of the world's geysers. One of them, Steamboat Geyser, is the tallest active geyser on Earth, blasting water more than 300 feet high when it erupts. The catch? You can never predict when it will go off. It can be weeks, months, or even years. It's the kind of natural force that reminds you how powerless humans really are. And here's something that feels almost supernatural. In New Mexico, there's a phenomenon known as the Taos hum. Residents and visitors report hearing a constant low-frequency humming sound with no clear source. Scientists have studied it, but to this day no one can fully explain what causes it. An invisible vibration haunting an entire town. Back to history now. During World War II, the US government actually built a fake neighborhood in Tennessee called Oak Ridge. It looked like a normal small town, but behind the closed doors, thousands of workers were unknowingly helping to enrich uranium for the atomic bomb. Many residents had no idea what they were part of until the bomb was dropped. A secret city hidden in plain sight. Here's another slice of the unbelievable. In 1974, a man named Evel Knievel tried to jump the Snake River Canyon in Idaho on a steam-powered rocket. He failed, his parachute deployed too early, and he landed at the bottom, but he survived. It was one of the strangest stunts ever attempted in American history, and thousands came to watch. Now let's step into the law again. In Texas, it is legal to kill Bigfoot if you ever see one. That's written into the law books of a county, just in case the legendary creature shows up. It's a mix of folklore and legislation that feels like satire, but it's real. And speaking of creatures, in Florida, Burmese pythons have become such an invasive species that they're literally taking over parts of the Everglades. Some grow more than 18 feet long. The government even holds an annual python challenge, a competition where hunters are paid to catch them. A battle between people and snakes in modern America. Now for the skies. The busiest airport in the world is Hartsfield-Jackson in Atlanta. On average, more than 100 million passengers pass through every year. That's more than the entire population of many countries moving through a single location. But here's a fact that feels like a glitch in reality. The city of Las Vegas has no basements in most of its buildings because the desert ground is too hard and rocky. Yet beneath the strip, thousands of homeless people live in storm drains, an underground world right below the bright lights and casinos. And one final seed for this round, in Arizona, there's a crater nearly a mile wide formed by a meteor impact about 50,000 years ago. It's so perfectly preserved that astronauts trained there before going to the moon. It's a scar in the earth that looks like. And so, we reach the end of this journey. I'm AppleKnows, your apple that peeled away layer after layer of America's strangest, most unbelievable truths. From ghost towns and secret cities to moving rocks, burning mines, and laws that make you question reality itself, the United States proves to be a land of contradictions where history, mystery, and absurdity live side by side. Every fact I've shared is a reminder that reality is often stranger than fiction, and sometimes, you don't need legends or myths, the truth itself is shocking enough. Thank you for listening, for peeling through this with me, and remember, this apple still knows more. But for now, the core has been revealed. This was AppleKnows. Until next time, keep questioning what you think you know.